want to sew along, this is pretty simple. I had some 2.5-inch strips. I need some shape flex. That's 2.5 by 7.5. So I've got a couple of those ready. Twin needle, some ribbons if you want them. You don't have to. I just thought they kind of prettied it up. But if you wanted it without, you can do it that way. I generally have most of my bookmark in the book and then just the ribbons hanging out. And I'll give you a bit of a close-up for the twin needle work. And this one, you probably can't see it well. It's on either side of the seam. Well, let me switch to the other camera. Maybe that'll be closer up. There we go. So there we go. Kind of pretty, don't you think? Pretty simple. Let me show you the one with the back. So when you're using a twin needle, it's going to give you a zigzag on the back because you don't have a twin bobbin. See it there? Okay, I guess it's me and you, Lynn. Okay, so we're going to, let's do this one first. So let me set these aside. And we're going to work on this one. We don't need our twin needle yet because we need to stitch our little sections. And I did 5 of them. I believe I'd said 2 by 2.5. So I pulled these off of a jelly roll. So while some people may be just joining in, I'm going to cut the seam allowance off. I mean, not the seam allowance, what am I saying? See, it's been so long. My bigger ruler. And I can see that, well, let me do it the easier way, because I can see those aren't quite even. So let me get 2 of this one. And I'm just going to set them on my machine. And then I'll get, I think I'll do, or 1 of each of those. And I've got 2 of that one. Yes, Lynn, a twin needle. So I was showing this to Caspian the other day because he does so now and again. And he wanted to know what the whole point was. And it's so, the nicest part of it is you'll have the exact distance between your two stitching, it'll be exactly the same everywhere. Plus, you can stitch once instead of twice, which is even better. And I think that I will, so I need a back, and my back is 2.5 by 8. And you can use any kind of scraps that you have, and you can make it any size that you want. So this piece, your back piece, is going to have the shape flex on it. And when I put my shape flex on, let's see if I can get up. Yeah, I didn't pick the best color to pick from. My shape flex is, my shape flex is 7 1/4. So if you made it 7 1/2, just take 1/4 of an inch off. And what I want is, I'm not going all the way up to the edge here, and I'm going to be flipping this end over about 1/2 inch. I don't need to have double duty on the shape flex there. So what I generally do is I just give it a little quick press, and then I bring in my hem gauge, and I just flip this over roughly 1/2 inch. If it's a little less, it's okay. And the instructions on the shape flex, I believe, call for you to use a damp pressing cloth, but you should use a pressing cloth. I just have so much stuff here that and you can't see what I'm doing if the pressing cloth is over it. Okay. So here's our back with our shape flex already on it. Here's my pieces, and I think while I have the iron right nearby, I'm gonna, because these are a bit curled up. So let's give them a quick press. It's a new year, everyone. Isn't it exciting? It's a new year. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have to decide what order I want them in. I don't know if I want, I don't think I want to have one of these at each end, especially since I'm going to be doing another one that has the same at each end. So I'm just going to kind of willy-nilly that one. So we got to have some thread, sewing thread in the machine, your regular needle, Microtech 7010 is what I use. Regular sewing thread. Same thread in the bobbin. Let me switch us over. Make sure your foot is up when you thread your machine so that your tension discs are open. I'm just using the regular straight stitch. I'm not going to be overly concerned with my 1/4 inch seam because I have 2, 4, 6 oh, 2, 4, 6, 8, plus one more. So because I have 5 2-inch pieces, I'm gonna have plenty enough. So I'm just gonna do a regular close 1/4 inch seam. And I've got my camera really right in front of me. So pardon my hand for just a minute. So I can follow my 1/4 inch line here. See that? So I like to be able to see the line. If I can't see the line, then I won't know how far over the line I am. I don't need to lock my seam because might be cutting some off each end anyway. I'm going to go ahead and get the next pair ready. Might as well just put one right after the other. Chain piece them along. You can even do this. You can even do this with different size. I was going to say squares, but they're rectangle. And let me just switch back for a second. So I just cut the threads where they were put together. And it doesn't matter for the moment which way your seams are going, because they're not ever going to be interlocking with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this guy onto here because I don't want to forget about him. And I still try to get straight on all 3 sides, even though it's a bookmark. I also practice good sewing skills. Let's see which way. Don't know which way I want to be now. No, I can do that. I don't want to do that. See how I've got it's in between each one. So I don't want to draw the eye to any particular. I don't know how that changed up. Any particular part that looks like it should match and then it doesn't. You can see my mouse is doing funny things. It went to my on-screen camera, so you can see that my hair's all disheveled from being out in the snow. So I'm just gonna give these a quick press. Should have asked Santa for a bigger area. And I think I will go press it so everyone's pressed to the dark side. So you can see pressing to the dark side has this one going to the left, this one going to the right, then we're left, and then we're right, then we're left. So it doesn't matter because there's nothing that's going to line up to it. Just got to get those little guys to. Oh, iron's hot, but it's so lightweight I forget I need to press down a little more just to get it to sit flat. Okay, so because I turned this one up, see that 1/2 inch, I need to turn one of these up. So I think I'll have this fella at the bottom. And I generally, what I do is I lay them side by side. Yeah, can you see that? So I'm lining them up with this line on my pressing mat, but you can just eyeball it. And then where I've already done this one, I'm just going to have the other one match. That way they're the same length, because that's going to be important to have them pretty much the same length. And again, I would normally use my heavier iron because that and would steam. Ooh, hot. Okay, so we have our two. Hold on, my little instructions closed up on me. Okay, so we have our two ends that are folded up, so we have a finished edge down here, and they should be the same size. And if you put them side by side and one guy's a little off from the other, you can always just give it a little trim. So I'll give mine a little trim. Just be careful that you're not trimming it when you really don't need to. But I wanted to show you how you can just, and make sure that you're lined up straight here and straight along here. And see, there was just a little slipper. Okay, so now we're going to determine if we're going to, oh, hi Cindy, Happy New Year. Now we got to put the ribbon on, and I want to put the ribbon on and stitch it onto this side that has the extra security or extra strength in case someone likes to grab onto the ribbons a lot. So this one, I think I'll just put 2 ribbons on. So I'm going to put the 2 ribbons on, and I don't know if it makes any difference, but I'm putting the blue one on top of the white one, so the white kind of shows through the blue. And I'm just going to go ahead and give that a little stitch. So let's see if we can switch over. And pardon my fingers there. There's not much to stitch, and you can use any size, any kind of ribbon you want, but I'm going to turn it around and come back again because it's so little, I'm not sure what made it for stitches, but it's just so you don't have to keep handling them. So now when I put them down, I don't have to keep lining them up again. So remember to have your fold at the bottom. I did one the other day. The fold was at the top. My ribbon was on the fold side. And just, if you need to know where the middle is, then use your mat. So I have the same distance on either side of these lines, and then I can use this middle line. And make sure you always have a little bit of the ribbon sticking past. Can you see it there? There you go. When you go to sew it on. You can pin it if you want. It's just so hard to pin ribbon, and then you're sticking holes in it. And make sure when you stitch it that you're inside of the seam allowance so your stitching doesn't show. And I'm going to go back and forth across. Oh, went a little too far that time. So now I know it's held down better, and I don't have to stitch back and forth as much when I do my seam. Just don't be too high up. So I might be I'm a little too high up. And what I mean is that would be fine, but if I end up trimming any of this seam allowance off, you see I would be trimming that. So I need to come in a little bit further. And again, you can do it when you do your seam allowance, but I find half the time I forget about that. Okay, so that's all seamed in. Let me switch it back for a second. Okay, so you can see here was my first one, and if I happen to clean off some of that seam allowance when I'm done, before I turn it right side out, I would take that off. So I just moved it down a little ways. Okay, the other thing I do, because depending on what ribbon you have and how much ribbon you have, and again, it's hard to pin it, so I'm just going to take a piece of my tape, tape from embroidery, and I'm just going to tape this down so I know we're under control and everything's good. Okay, folds at the bottom, ribbons at the top. Now I'm going to put this one on, and these folds should match up. And if you want to pin them, I'll put a clip there. That's fine. Okay, make sure it's smoothed out. And that's why you want to make sure that you've pressed this well, because when you have a lot of seams, they tend to pull in a little bit. And then if they're pulled in, see how that would be off. But once I lay it down so that the seams and this fabric is nice and flat, and we can stick a pin down here out of the way. See, I'm not a good pinner. I find I make more lumpiness than I do make it nice and flat. So I'll go this way. See if it likes that a little better. I think I was right where the ribbon was. Okay, and you could pin up here, but I try to pin where it's not so much in the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to start down at the folded end, and we'll do a little locking stitch. We're going to go up, cross, and down, and lock. Don't go across the folded area. Okay? Can't see back from where I am. Okay, so, pardon my finger. And let me turn down the light because I can see that a little bright. Yeah, that's probably a little bit better. And I just have to pay attention to my seam allowances and make sure that, like, this one is facing towards the machine, so when the foot comes by, it's going to want to flip that up. So I just have to be aware of that. And I want to make sure that both of my fabrics are lined up on this side. And let me turn my speed down a little. And I'm making sure this seam stays flat, so I can keep it flat right over here. I don't need my fingers up in this area. I'm going to hold my fabric, take that pin out of my way. And I want to go up till I'm about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And I can tell when I turn it, I've still got a lot of fabric over here, so I can take one more stitch. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want to make sure that my seam allowance on the right side is now going the same way as the left. I don't want one going one way and one the other. And I can get my clip out of the way. And making sure that my two folds are lined up. Take my time. And lock my stitch. Oh, my finger's in the way. That was pretty easy, don't you think? So now what I want to make sure that I do is get my scissors. First thing that's helpful. Move my mouse out of the way. Is I want to clip my corners. And you see how that's how you normally clip a corner? I take it a little more on the angle. And you see how I came down more? Here's my corner right here. Came down a little bit more. And I'm going to take this down to about 1/8. And then clip this corner. There. Can you see that angle on there? And if you did your seam allowance a little big, then make sure you cut that down. So if you feel like your seam allowance was a little bigger than it should have been, just cut that down. Now I want to turn this right side out. I'm going to trim these threads. So what we should do is trim the threads and do a little press. We're going to do it right. That just makes those stitches set into the fabric, and it sets that seam, and it just makes it so it's not that little puckery looking to it. And I'm going to reach up inside as far as I can get in there. And I'm just going to, see, I don't think I locked my seam at that beginning, so see what happened? So I'm going to go ahead, and rather than start here and go back, I'm just going to start here and come down and lock that again. And I just have to line up where my other stitching was. So that happens, and it's easier to fix it than just let it go and then, try to fool around with it after. So what I want to do, I did a little bit bigger seam allowance than I should have. So mine's a little tougher to get straightened out. Now don't find those ribbons and just grab on and yank them, because that doesn't always work out. So here's my tape. I tape where the ribbons are. And I will, once it gets a little ways, I will use the ribbons to help open it up. I just want to get this tape off. some reason that piece of tape was extra sticky. And if you have the paper tape, you can use that. And I'm just going to use the bigger end of my turner instead of this end because I got a big piece of fabric to push through. And again, probably taking a slight scant 1/4 inch seam. And you can always cut it, 3 inches or whatever you width you want. I want to make sure I get those corners out. And I'm going to trim my threads as I see them, because they seem to be everywhere. And I'm going to use my turner now. I'm going to use it from the ball end. And I just want to go along the edge where the seam is on each side. That just makes it start to sit. Now it's starting to sit a little more even. And again, trim out any threads. And before I press this, I want to make sure that the back isn't shown on the front and the front's not showing on the back. And my ends are still folded under. Okay, so now we're going to just stitch across this edge to close it up. Now you could put steam-a-seam. Steam-a-seam comes in a roll that's like 1/4 inch wide, and you could put a piece inside there and just then press that closed. If you wanted to, you could do that. We're just going to stitch across. And then we'll go ahead and put our twin needle on. Or should we make 2? Maybe we should make 2 and then put our twin needle on. So let's just close up this edge. So we want to make sure we lock at the beginning and the end. And I'm going to lift my needle up because I'm a little too far in. I want to be about probably a little less than an eighth of an inch away. And you don't, oops, sorry, you don't have to get to like hanging off the very edge. So let me just trim up the threads and then I'll show you. So see where I am? Oh, let me put my other. Hold on a second. Lost my light switch. There. Now you can see it better. Let's see if it'll focus. It shouldn't have. I thought I had it set not to unfocus. Trying to see which side shows it better. You see it right along there. Maybe it like less light better. Let's see if we can get a happy medium going here. Oh. There we go. Can you see it right along there? Yeah. Couldn't find a spot to put the mouse down. Okay. So that's done, except for our top stitching that we're going to do with the twin needle. So let's go ahead and make one that is just the two fabrics. I won't be mean today and make you take the twin needle in and out. So let's do this one that has just the two fabrics. Okay? All right, so I gotta save this one up here because that's the one I'm working on. I almost got rid of it by mistake. So we need 2 pieces of fabric, 2.5 by 8. So there's one. And now you know what? Let's do 1 and 2. And I'm going to do this one without the ribbon, because my nephew might like a bookmark, and he might not care about having any ribbons. And it's blue, so that should be okay. I think he likes blue all right. So I'm cutting 2 pieces, 8 inches. This will show you how easy they are. So we're doing 2 pieces, 8 inches. We're not going to use any ribbon. You can if you'd like. We'll just make this one quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and line them up. So that I can now fold them both over at the same time. Making sure my ruler is also straight. So I'm putting it along this line right here, not my ruler, my hem gauge. Now I almost forgot my shape flex. So I'm going to stick that one in here. So it should still fit in. See how it doesn't go quite to the edge. If yours does, just trim a little off. The shape flex is pretty light. If you wanted this stiffer, you could use a stiffer interfacing. Craftstash would probably be, I think that would be too heavy, but there's another, I can't remember the name of it. But there's some that are a little heavier than this. So if you want a little more to it, I just find like batting would be too much. And if you wanted to put an embroidery on it, someone's initial or their name, I would do it before I cut it out. In this case, I have just strips. So, shoot, I would probably do a sticky stabilizer. And you could do it like in your 4-inch hoop. Okay? Oh, hot. That little iron's hot. I know, I probably keep saying that. Okay, so we want to make sure that we have right sides together. Remember, I'm not doing a ribbon in this one. I should do one ribbon, shouldn't I? And if you want to do a ribbon, that's fine. I want to make sure that these are lined up. If this one end is a little off, again, we can trim it or just not worry about it because it'll be in the seam allowance. Okay, so if you want to put a clip at the bottom, and I'm going to put it over a little ways to that side because I'm going to start stitching here. And then I want to make sure my sides are straight. And I can stick this pin in here. And again, we're going to start down here, lock our stitch. So if you want to go, I think this time I'll go 3 forward, 3 back, start, come around and get down here and then go 3 back. And then I'll lock because I don't like having my stitches. Here's what I'm going to do, because I don't like having my threads at the end, because you know, no matter how much you clip them, there's like little whiskers there. So I'm going to come in a couple stitches. Well, I'm going to start. I want to start. I don't want to flip this back, so I want to start like right about here, and then I'll go back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to start. My needle will come down and it'll still be on my fold because I don't want to get like back here and then it flips back on me. So I'm going to put my needle down about at the edge here, and I'm going to go back and then forward. And then that I won't have any tails out there. And when I get to this side, I'll stitch down to the end, but then I'm going to come back and I'm going to stop up here. Does that make sense to you? And you know, if you want to do it a different way, that's fine. I find that trying to get those little stitches out of these ends, the threads out of these ends, doesn't always work. Well, never works for me. So I'm going to come down so that my needle, and I'm going to take less than a 1/4 inch. So see my 1/4 inch mark? I can really see it now. I just have to keep my eye on something that tells me that I'm going to do this the same way the whole way. And I think that, let me see if I can point with something. The edge of my foot, the metal part, when it turns to the plastic part, is right in line with where I want to be here. So I can keep my eye on the my fabric to this edge. And if you can hear that thumping noise, I apologize. It's got to be my upstairs neighbor, and I don't know what they're doing. So I'm gonna go forward just a couple stitches first so that I make sure I've stitched this little fold down so it won't unfold. Then I'm gonna go back, so I'm using my back button. Till I get to the edge and then come forward again. And see how my pin was out of my way when I came by, but I've got to move it when I come across this way. And again, if you can hear that hammering, I apologize. Then I'm going to go up some, that 1/4 inch or a little less away, come across. Stop, check, oh, I got one more. So I'm going to go ahead and take this clip off. Make sure that my folds, both my folds, stay where they're supposed to be. Come down to the end. Now, I would probably turn this to go back because I can see here to go back on my stitching. Or if I'm here and I'm hitting my back sewing backwards button, I can't see where I'm going. So I'm going to just turn it. And then I'm going to come up and then I'll do my little lock in place here. So see now, I don't have any threads hanging out these ends. I don't know if, and see on this one, can you, I don't know if you can see the little fuzzies there? I'm not sure if you can see them or not. And I swear that I clip them, they're like a little whisker or something. You clip them and they're back again. Okay? So, nice clean edges, no threads there at all. Okay, so I've got to clip my ends. And again, you see how I came down this, let me see what, that's too busy. Can you see that here's my corner, and can you see I kind of graduated out instead of just clipping the corner? And I'll do the same thing. Can you see I'm starting down, oh, maybe ½ inch down, and then clipping? And I'm going to put the top at about 1/4 inch. So I did a much better job on not having that too big of a seam. So it should turn, oh, let's give it a little press. Can't forget that part, can we? And see, now my thread is up. See it? My thread's up here. I don't even care about it. I don't really have to trim it at all. It's up here out of the way instead of being at this end. See how, oh, there it is. See the little fella? Yeah, see? All right, so let's turn this guy right side out. And I just kind of reach in and grab a bunch of fabric. And again, I'm using this big end because I don't need to be poking at it. There's way too much fabric still in there. See how much fabric was in there? Now I can go in and get those ends straightened out. And again, I'm going to come down the side with my tool, and I'm right on my seam allowance. See if you can see it. See, watch it right here. See, as I drag along, I'm just pushing that seam allowance out. See if I can do it this way. Oh. You see as I come down? And again, I want to make sure that when I flatten this out, I don't want to see the back fabric on the front or the front fabric on the back. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead again and I'm going to stitch along that bottom. And let's try, so I'm going to come in and start here, go back, and then forward, and then get to here. I'm going to turn it around and go back in. So again, I don't have those threads on the end. So I'm in, oh, I don't know, maybe a little more than a 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to go forward a couple. And I am going to turn it because it's so much easier to see where you're going when you're driving forward than when you're driving backwards. And get to that end, and I don't have to hang off the end. And now I can see where my stitches were and head forward. And then when I get to this end, and again, I don't have to go off the edge. I'm just going to come in a little ways, stitch it right on top, and I'll do my blocking stitch. And that way, I don't have any threads hanging on these sides. I've got this little fella in the back, and it's much easier to trim him off like that. Oh, forgot about the beginning one. Can't get a hold of that little fella. There we go. Okay, so see, no edge, no threads hanging off the edges. So that works pretty good. Okay, so here's our two bookmarks. On this one, we're going to do this one first, in case you're a little nervous, and we're just going to stitch with our twin needle from one side to the other. Blocking at the beginning, locking at the end, lock at the beginning, lock at the end, and go down. And that's all. On this one, we're going to do this little kind of swirly thing there. Okay, a little waviness. And if you look at it, there's no particular sense to it. But, you know, it isn't like it's geometrically correct. Trust me there. And then we'll do that one. On that one, if you wanted to mark it, you can mark it. Let's see. Let's mark it. Sometimes knowing where you're going or having some kind of path to where you're going is helpful. And I know we've marked on things before, but someone may be new to joining in. It's just kind of a reference mark. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. There you go. See, it's right here. So I came along here, and I went over to there and back. And then I'm going to do another one. I'm doing this one different than the last one I did. I'm going to the other edge and back. So this time I'm over here. I went along here and then over like that and back. And we'll just hope to be somewhere in the vicinity of that. So let me see. I got my camera up close here. All right. So I'm going to move my camera that's on the machine down so that you can see the threading. You're going to need 2 spools of thread. And if you don't have, because a lot of us don't, I don't usually, have two spools of the same color, then you can wind some onto a bobbin and use a bobbin up where your second spool of thread would go. And I got some legs longer than other legs here. So it gives everybody a minute to get caught up. Okay, and let me back up the camera. All right, let's see. I didn't want to do that while you had to be watching it because you'd be all dizzy. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is on my machine, and a lot of machines have it. I don't think that's going to make any difference. I'm going to have a spot for the twin needle. Now, brother baby lock, depending what machine you have, it may be along this side, it may be down here. I can't remember if it goes this way. Mine is up inside of this little button. If you have like the Aventura, the mid-range machines, there's going to be a button where you can adjust your stitch length, and that may be there. But what you're looking for is this right here. So I've told my machine I have twin needle. So it's not going to let me do things that I shouldn't. So for example, if I wanted to go here, well, I'm trying to find one that will, okay, see, I get this, I can't use it. Some machines, it'll gray out the ones you can't use right away. But we're going to just stay on, oh, I have to tell it okay. We're just going to stay on straight stitch, regular straight stitch 1-03. Okay, let me back this up again. I'm trying not to make you dizzy. Okay, so I have a 2-thread stand. See it? And I know some of you do. So in using that, I don't put both my threads up there. My second spool is right here. A lot of machines will have a secondary spool pin, and a lot of times it goes on top of your bobbin winder. Or you might have a little spot back here, little square, or up somewhere around here. But a lot of them go right on the spool winder. I'm sorry, the bobbin winder. Okay, so let me just bring this down a little bit more. And bring this in a little bit. Okay, so let's put our needle on first. Okay, you don't have to be afraid of the twin needle because it only goes on one way. My twin needle went under my machine. So it comes in this little package. Let me back this up a little bit. You don't need to be that close, do you? Okay. So inside of here, it's in the little foil package. And there it is. Oh. Can you see that? So it's got, oh here, I can just put it right there. Well, you can't see that either. It has the two needles and then just one shaft. And that shaft is exactly the same as the shaft for one needle. So I'm taking my needle out. Make sure I put it on my cushion in my needle section. And generally the flat part is to the back. And when I put a needle on, I go down in my foot and up. Because if I have it in my foot where it's supposed to be, then chances are it's already lined up to come straight up. And make sure you have it all the way in. And you know that by here's the clip that holds your thread just before the needle. Right above that's a little window where you can see when you put the needle in or not. It should hit against, there's another little metal, looks like a little round thing, and it should hit right against that. So you can see it there to make sure it's in all the way. Now, because I hit twin needle button, I can't use my threader, my automatic threader. If you have the threader that's over here, you're not going to use that either. If you have the threader that's here, you're not going to use that either, because the needles are on either side of where the normal needle position is. So you're going to have to thread for yourself. I know, I can hear you booing already. So I'm threading my left needle. And if I put my finger behind my needle where the eye is, I can see the eye better. I was like, I'm not seeing the end of the thread so well, but, and you always want to make sure, you have to take the glasses off. You always want to make sure that you cut your thread before you try threading it, so that, I may have to get my face right in your way, so that you have your end of your thread is flat. You don't need to be spitting on it. Okay, so my left needle is threaded. So now I'm going to put my glasses back on again. Now I'm going to back up here. And I'm going to thread in the exact same place that I threaded before. Sorry, but I lost my connection here. So I'm just going to stop for a minute to make sure that I'm still broadcasting through. Okay. I think we're good. It might have been just my other computer that froze up. I think we're okay. All right, if anybody's chatting, can let me know if they can still, if they're still getting the streaming. I don't want to start this unless I know I'm not frozen. Okay, I think we're okay. All right, so I have my second spool in my regular spool slot, and I'm just going to thread the same exact way I threaded the first time. I just want to make sure that my left needle, my thread is on the left, and my right needle, my thread is on the right. And let's see if I can thread without getting my hands all in your... Oh, thank you, Cindy, for letting me know. I don't know what that, it must have been my, just my other computer. Okay, so I have my threads are coming off the back. I can see that coming down to my needles, nothing's twisted. All right, is everybody ready? I'll give you a second to get your needle threaded. I'll move some of my stuff out of the way. And what I always do is I have a little piece of scrap fabric, and I'll just do a little stitching. And I notice my thread cutter still cuts. And there's my little, oh, let me get the, oh. Let me get the light back on again. Oh, there we go. My little line of stitching is working fine. The back is like a little zigzag. Okay, is everybody excited? You got your needles all threaded? Okay, I have to move the camera just a tad because the camera wire is almost in the, let me come down a little bit. There's nothing really special to see. So we're going to take this one first. And you don't have to be hanging off the edge. Just make sure you're on the fabric. And I'm just going to, on mine, I'm just going to stitch in place a couple times. And I'm going to go across, stitch in place a couple times, and then cut. And I'm going to go down each one of those. And I am using, let me see if I can show you. So I'm using my J foot. And can you see right there? See the little notch right there? That's where my needle comes down. So I'm going to keep the seam. See if I can show you. I'm going to keep the seam. See, there's my notch. I want to see, there's my seam. I'm just going to make sure that I keep an eye on that notch running right down that seam. Okay, everybody ready? So I want to make sure that my needles are on the fabric, and that little notch I showed you on the foot. Let's see if I can show you this way. That notch is lined right up with this seam. And that's what I'm going to keep my eye on. My eye is on this notch, not on the needles. And then when I get here, my notch will be right along this. And when I get here, my notch will be right along there. So it's pretty easy to see once you know. Sorry, we're having leg issues here. Once you see where to stitch at, it's a little easier to see. I don't think I can get any closer than that. Okay, I have to stand up because I keep my hand out of your way. This is how I would hold my hands on either side of that. Okay, we're having focus issues. On either side of this fabric is my hands because I'm pulling them a little bit away from each other, so this isn't getting bunched up. So I'll try to do it this way. I get off my notch. Okay, so I'm going to stitch in place just a couple times. Take my time. Oh, don't kick the camera. Okay, so let's see if you can see that all right. There we go. See the stitching? So it's just on either side. If I was normally doing this, I'd probably have a 3.0 twin needle in. That is I mean, that's kind of close together, but it's perfectly close together. So let's do another one. Lining up my notch on my foot, and then making sure that my needle has fabric under it. In my locking stitch. Normally, again, I'd have my hands like this, but I'll just put my, well, it's probably easier with my hands like, if I can keep my hands down out of your way. Because my hands are going to follow right through, hanging on the whole way. Hit the wrong pedal. Okay, got two more to do. Lining up the notch of my foot first with the line of the seam allowance. Making sure my needles are on fabric. Here we go. Trying to see where my hands could go. That will be out of your way. Making sure I lock at each end. One more. I feel like, you know, when you do the exercises, one more round. And I'm just making sure that I don't have anything tangled there. And one more. Well, this one you can probably see a little better. Oh, hey, look at that. Isn't that pretty? Nice and even across. Okay, let's switch back for a second. Then we can go ahead and trim up our threads. I know you're probably saying that I ended up with threads at the end anyways, but that's all right. It's not those ones in the corner that drive me crazy. And because if you don't want to, I locked my threads. If you don't want to lock your threads because maybe it makes a little mess or whatever, you can use fray block, fray check, but use it before you cut your thread. So if you have long threads and you're a little nervous about cutting them, put a little fray. I think fray block, I always forget. Fray block, I think, is the one that dries clearer and not as stiff. Just put a couple drops on each one, flip it over, do the other side, let it dry, and then trim. And you can trim as close as you want to, and you'll be fine. So you might find that easier. You know, that's all like a personal preference kind of thing. But if you, let me go back to the other. camera for a minute. So if you look, okay, let it focus in. You see those little zigzags there? They're fine. It's no big deal. At least to me, it's not. But with a twin needle, that's what you're going to get every time. Okay, so before we get to the scary part, which is this one, when I did this particular one, I went down each side. I went down one side, and then I went down the other side. And then I moved in so that the edge of my foot was riding the edge of this stitch and did the second one. And then the third one, I just made sure my foot was even between the two that I did and just came straight down. So I didn't get out the slide ruler and measure how far apart they needed to be from each other. It did end up that, what you really notice is these two. And they're gonna be fine because I ran this one last and made sure there was an even amount of distance on either side of my foot when I ran this one. You don't really notice. See, when you look at it, you don't really notice those edge ones. You notice this middle section. So you don't need to get out the abacus, slide ruler, or anything else. Just do your work one side, then the other. Move in, use your foot as your point of reference, and do this one, excuse me, then this one. Then you just have the middle. You're just going to line up so that your foot is between those two lines of stitches evenly all the way down. Okay, so let's do one round of this one. I'm going to start up at the end, and I might not go to this very end because I can always come around afterwards and do a twin needle across here if I wanted to, or even a single needle. So I don't necessarily have to get like practically hanging off the edge. I'm going to start about right there. Okay, so let's give it a whirl. Somebody let me know if anybody's sewing along, how you doing, how you like the twin needle. So let me see, let me move this camera back here again. And I don't know if I can get an overhead. I just have to pull the tripod all the way back in. I don't want to do it. So if anybody has any questions or comments while I'm trying to give you more of an overhead, just go ahead and put them in. No questions or comments at all? Come on, you guys, you got to help me fill in this time while I close this tripod up. Of course, I'll close the tripod up and nothing will happen here. I mean, I won't be able to get overhead. That's what I was trying to say. Let's see. Oh. So in doing that, my camera shut off and then turned back on. So let's see. Okay, let's see if we're still hooked up. Oh, good. How's that? Oh, Lynn, no twin needle handy. Oh. It's in your beauty box, Lynn. That's what we call the accessory box for the Alyssimo, Destiny, and Solaris, the beauty box. Okay, so here we're going to go. You can see my line. And my line is just kind of a point of reference. Doesn't mean I'm going to be like, this isn't the highway. I don't have to stay in my own lane. Okay, so let me see if I can get around the camera. And I'm going to get on the fabric just a little ways. And again, I'm going to use that little notch in my foot, in my presser foot, not my foot. My foot doesn't have a notch in it, to follow my line around. So I'm going to lock my stitch. And you have to forgive me because I'm standing. So let me see if I can turn this down. There, now you can see where I'm supposed to be going. So, excuse me. Okay, so I'm supposed to be following along this. All right, so I'm standing up using my foot pedal, and hopefully I don't lean into the camera and tip everything over. And I'm just going to take my time. And I have pivot so my foot can come up for me. And sometimes this is about a good speed, because sometimes if you go too slow, it doesn't work out real well. And you can't turn too much with the needles in because there's two needles there. And then I'm going to lock it. So let's see. Well, that's not, you know what? I'm okay with that. That's probably the best I've ever followed a line in my life. So do you see it? Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other one because I'm on a roll now. And let's see if I can get two of them that look good. You think that's possible? I get two right? Oh, and I can't tell if my needle came unthreaded or not. So I'm going to stitch for a second. No, we're good. You want to think about turning, start turning before it comes to the turn. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I went off my fabric, and that's going to happen to you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach to my wheel over on the right side of my machine, and I'm going to, don't do this often, but I'm going to go backwards. And what it's doing, because I didn't finish that stitch, is it undid that last stitch. So let's see. See, I was way off here. But now in this case, because I did it this way, I don't need to do anymore. When I did the first one, because I had no clue where I was gonna go, I started here, and I went over here, and then I crossed over. And then when I did the next one, it came over here, and out, but I ended up like with this big space. So then I put a third one on. Can you see them? So there's actually three of those, and they didn't follow anything. Excuse me. I did cross over them because see, I crossed over here and here. So you can cross over anywhere you want. And my end, I don't know if you can see it, but my end, so one is here, one is here, one is here. There's no like equal distance between them. Can you see those at all? Here you go. Oh, Lynn found her twin needle. Now the pressure's on now, Lynn. Okay, so let me switch back. And thank you for your patience while I got my camera reset up. I thought it was better to look at this area than to have your eyes go berserk with me moving that camera around. And I am going to, remember, we have these marks on here, so even if you didn't follow your marks, it doesn't matter because they just got ironed away. So now there's no marks there. So see? Now, did I do the same at this end, at that end? No, I didn't. And then there's those pesky little threads again. And again, so if you have this little bunch of threads and you're concerned, put some fray block on, let it dry, and then come in and clip them. Don't clip them first. Wait till you put the fray block on, or fray check, whatever one you use. So I think you should make a bunch of these because they're a handy little gift to have. Let me move all this stuff out of the way. So look, what do we got? That's last time's. This one, I just put this fabric here. I think I put it in the list on Facebook, but this piece is about 5.5, and then this one was 2 and 2. But you can make it 2.5 and 2.5, and then just trim off whatever you don't want. So I decided I wanted it a little bigger on the top and a little smaller on the bottom. So I just did that afterwards. I just trimmed them. So here we go. So some scraps of fabric. You know how you get a jelly roll and you always end up with pieces left over? There you go. And I still have, what did we use? We didn't even use half of a strip, I don't think. Because I kept using different ones for the back to keep the jelly roll strips kind of, you know, not using up all of one over another. So I hope you enjoyed this class. I hope you enjoyed using your twin needle. Don't forget, when you take your thread out for the twin needle, cut it up by the spool, then reach down to your needle area, pull that thread forward. Never pull it back up through your machine because you'll get a piece caught for sure. You don't want a $120 repair just because of a, you know, that you were trying to save an eighth of a penny's worth of thread. So just try to have those good habits. This is going to be our year of good sewing habits, fun things to do, trying out different things. If like the twin needle, I say next time you're out, get a couple different sizes of twin needles. They'll last you a long time because you don't use them a lot. And then you'll have them because you want to add a little element on. You can do that. And there are some of the like the zigzag and that will let you use the twin needle. So thanks for joining in today. If you have the circular attachment, we'll be using that in the coming weeks because we're going to sew some circles, and we'll use some different feet along the way and with our different projects. So like I said, thanks again everyone. Happy New Year. We're off to a good start. We got a little snowstorm, but now the sun is out, the roads are clear, we're good to go. And I will see you next Saturday. Bye, everyone.